Hello there. This is Trowley again, Hand with Trowel, coming to talk to the rest of you fellow Trowlies about, now that I'm finally getting around to it, my front garden. Now, see, the thing with a front garden, at least at where I'm at, in this wonderful 83-degree weather in the end of March, is I get a lot more of that good old sun blinding stuff there. Can't even look up towards the sky, even with my very nice glasses here. And so I'm going to do a quick little tour of the front garden. It's going to be much quicker than the back one, that's for sure, because, being a renter and all, there's only so much I feel like I can get away with. So I look at that grassy lawn and sadness and despair at what could be, not what is. And so I'm just going to get started. So there's a mix of things out here, some of which was like, I got this nice spider plant, I'm pretty sure. Came when we first moved in. It was just left here. I've been watering it. This thing has gotten huge. When I first moved in, it was barely large enough to stick out of the pot. Now it's ginormous. It's got offshoots. I've got a little bit of crimson clover growing there. It's been eaten by slugs. Not sure what the hell that is. Probably a weed. Probably gonna have to get rid of it. And over here are a bunch of succulents in a tray that have been, succulents are a fan favorite of my roommate, and so I just kind of let that one be. I water them regularly because without me, many things will die. So I'm not going to talk too much about any of those. But up here, so this pot, in many years past, I've grown many successions of cherry tomatoes, patio yellow cherry. Very sweet, delicious cherry when it gets all of the sun it needs. So they can be very, very delicious cherry tomatoes. I can have a little transplant in there, a nice little green guy you can see. And that's a transplant I pulled from the little pot over here I showed you earlier. Now, many tomatoes, I've had some in the back that have survived over winter, and I'm looking forward to getting some tomatoes off of them this summer and fall. These guys are true annuals because the patio cherry is a determinate. And so while I had a huge giant bush of tomatoes here, all the green guys left, there's been nobody who survived over winter. And so all of these are from, you see the little yellow tomatoes that I've got down in there? They're growths that just come back off of those seeds. And so that's a very, very handy one that reseeds very easily off of its own tomatoes. And so I just took some of those massive number of transplants and shoved them one into my pot. Now, I let them do survival of the fittest and just fight it out to be the greatest tomato of this container. And ultimately, that's worked out for me before. I've pulled tons and tons of yellow cherries, even when they've been competing like crazy out of this little guy. So I just let them do its thing. I've got this one reseeded as well with a little bit of clover hidden in. I stashed that in a lot of places using the Dutch clover. And so I will be seeing how that performs over time. I've certainly learned a fair bit of clover and clover logic and things I've mixed. And I've got some very good demonstrations up front here. So one thing that you don't want to mix with clover are these guys. So these are potatoes. Potatoes, shoot up from the spud. So if you've got already established crimson clovers, that's actually troublesome because the crimson clovers grow very tall, and so it can actually shade out a young potato plant. And once potato plants are more mature, these guys, even with it's up this tall, by the end of my last season, I had these guys get so tall that they fell over and were just like literally filling up tons of this space here and blocking up tons of the container. And so that was from the purple potatoes that I was growing, which, fun colors of tomatoes, I always recommend. It makes your life so much more interesting. And so I'm figuring that with the way the crimson clovers have been behaving, I had to trim them down, as you can see some trimming, so that way, I can get sun to my potatoes here, because potatoes is my ultimate goal, and the clover is just supposed to be supporting and bringing nutrition back in. So if you want to use clover, maybe go through cycles. You'll have it clover up all over the winter, and then once, you hit planting time, you cut down all your clover, plant in your potatoes, or even just wait for the potatoes to sprout and then cut down the clover. So that way the clover then decomposes and provides a lot of nitrogen, and then all you need to supplement is like the potassium and a few other nutrients. So it reduces the amount of fertilization you'd have to do, but you're definitely going to want to do it with a strategy. I'm going to wind up probably cutting down all that clover there and just letting it turn into compost, because honestly it competes too much with my potatoes. Up here, I've got my Seascape strawberries. These guys have been with me for a few years now. I'm hoping to actually get some runners off of them so I can propagate these guys before they peter out, because strawberries usually are good for 3 to 5 years, and this is going to be my 3rd year with those Seascapes. So best of luck to them. Those are different than the ones I had in my backyard. I don't think I ever bothered to give the name for them, but those were chandlers. Now over here is something that does go very well with the crimson clovers, and that's because this was already established. So putting crimson clovers with an already established vining tomato. So this one is a Tasmanian chocolate. Very delicious tomatoes. Love these guys. And in this March, I've already got... Go away. I've watered, so the wasps are all coming out for a drink. And so I've got these Tasmanian chocolate tomatoes already coming in. I've got 3 of them on this vine here. This vine back here, I'm probably going to have to do a trim because this had a breakage up on this part of the vine. So once some of the rest of it grows in more, I'm going to cut off that part. Not to mention it's too tall. I can't support it there. But with something that gets as tall as a vining tomato, like you can see, even with the base from where we are here on the container, how tall I got my delicious peas here. Of course, they're tall too. But how tall the crimson clover gets. And you can see that it's a lot more stunted from my lower container than the growth is from my upper container. And that's because these tomatoes, having already been established and being very aggressive growers, keep eating up tons of the nitrogen that's getting fed in. And so and not to mention taking a lot of the light. So they're suppressing the clovers in their container. Whereas the clovers in the other container aren't getting suppressed yet, because back here you can see these little pucks popping out there. That's from my fall gold raspberries. And so once those raspberries start coming in, they'll make really good use of all the nitrogen those clovers are establishing. Plus crimson clovers, those are just beautiful flowers. Makes me really sad how many I want to have to trim down and replace with, those ones aren't getting replaced until, I go through the cycle. And then if I do anything, I'm going to be sticking in the Dutch clover, because it's a lot shorter, so that way the potatoes can eventually outgrow it, and then it'll just decompose naturally. And then, I plugged in a couple brandy wines around here. I'm going to see how much I can get away with. If my landlord asks me to get rid of them, well, it's going to be sad, but just a sprout. Oh, and I've got, I don't remember if that was barbecue rosemary or a different variety, but the thing I like about that rosemary is that it doesn't flower as much as the other ones, so it doesn't get as messy. Over here, I've got my pink lemonade blueberries. I've seen hummingbirds come by. They like to fertilize these, as well as, wasps actually really seem to like these flowers. I was hoping the bees would be bigger on them. They tried talking about how, like, on the packets and orders and stuff, they're like, oh yeah, it's a pollinator favorite. Bees love them. I haven't seen a single bee give two turtles about this. Don't ask. It's turtles, whatever. But one thing I'm going to have to do is, you see I've got more crimson clover here. I've planted a new Dutch clover that is trying to get established if it wasn't for the squirrels constantly digging them out. The Dutch clover is a lot shorter. It's like, you can see some of the Dutch clover in the grass out here. It doesn't get very tall. And so I'm going to have to replace all this crimson clover, because as much as I love it and I love its flowers and everything, it just gets too big even for my blueberries here. So pretty much, if I'm going to use crimson clover, put it with the already very tall vining established plants. And man, I am looking forward to my Tasmanian chocolates. It took me 2 years to actually finally get one of these to grow successfully. I killed so many sprouts and I'd almost given up, and then, I'd gotten super lucky. And I was able to get these guys established, and they overwintered out here in the front lawn here. Even when we were hitting sub-freezing temperatures, they overwintered surprisingly well. And so that's also thanks, I think, in part to getting some of the clover tests to help as well. So these clovers do another very, very handy thing, is that they are, the crimsons can get somewhat sensitive towards water scarcity. And so you'll see them being a straight up soft body plant like that, is that they'll start folding over a lot earlier. And so these guys, if I see anything that says that they've got any water stress on them, I know I gotta water. And so that'll keep me much better on my watering schedule for these tomatoes too. So I'm looking forward to that coming up. Then over here, I've got another rosemary. I wish I remembered the rosemary varieties, and I long forgot them. That's one of the flowering ones, but it's still pretty delicious. I've got this one established in ground. Planning on putting a sage out here. These do love the lavenders quite a bit. They've been going crazy over these flowers. Got mountains of them. And then the part I'm most excited about as well, this tree has been with me for ages. Smelling those citrus flowers is always my favorite part of the season. Citrus flowers have such a potent, delicious smell to them. And so it's just flowering like crazy here. You know, I've had this guy going on 3 years, and this is the best year it's got so far. It's gotten much larger, much more established, and I've learned proper watering habits and maintenance to have for it. You know, I've got my drainages properly set so I never, drown it. And I've got my regular watering schedules learned even through the hot summers that we get, and the cold winters and with the rain. And so it's like, I can actually get it to grow healthy and strong. I had one orange off of it over winter, and I was both excited to finally have gotten one, because in 3 years, one orange is not great returns, a lot of learning. Should be much, much better this year. I mean, the blooms are also just so much more phenomenal than last year. It's explosively numbers of blooms. So I'm very excited for this, and it just smells so fantastic. And so, yeah, that is my front yard garden tour. So this is Trowel signing off.